Are you wearing your armor? In Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10, the Apostle Paul tells us to put on the full armor of God. And he's talking about the tools and the weapons that God has given us to get through the battle that we experience every day. He begins with the belt of truth. And so let me ask you, do you believe in the truth? Do you live in the truth? Someone might ask you if there is a difference between right and wrong, between a man and a woman. Are you going to stand up for what you actually believe? We then put on the breastplate of righteousness. The Apostle Peter in 1 Peter chapter 2 tells us to abstain from sinful desires that wage war against our souls. So putting on the breastplate of righteousness means that we partner with God rather than the enemy. We choose to abstain from sins that are waging a war against us. This is what it means to put on the breastplate of righteousness. We then come to the shoes of the readiness of the gospel. Are you ready to talk about and do something about this gospel that you believe? For some people, the readiness of the gospel means they need to do less stuff. So, for example, I don't know how you would be able to help your friend in a time of need if you are too busy to answer the phone when they're in a time of need. I don't know how you can be the hands and feet of Jesus if you have so many social commitments that you don't have time for anything else. For some people, the readiness of the gospel means that you need to do less stuff. But for other people, the readiness of the gospel just means that you need to make more of a commitment to church and church-related activities. Perhaps you need to do more stuff. Or more specifically, the right kinds of stuff. Because some of you may need to explain to your children that they can't play sports or go to a birthday party that's on a Sunday because it's more important that you go to church. The question really is, are you ready for the gospel? And I hope that as I'm saying this leads you into some reflection to question how you spend your time and where you spend your energy. And then we get to the shield of faith. And it specifically says that the shield of faith is what we use to extinguish the arrows of the enemy. I'm imagining this battle where there are arrows going left and right, and we're using our faith strategically to help us accomplish what God is calling us to do. Have you ever had a bad day that turned into a bad week, that just turned into a bad month? It is your faith in God which is supposed to break that cycle, because you know who you are in Jesus and you know what He is calling you to do. So we have the shield of faith, and then we put on the helmet of salvation, because at the end of the day, we all know that all Christians are ending up in the same place. It doesn't matter how successful you are in this life. It doesn't matter what you do or fail to do for God. At the end of the day, all of us who believe in Jesus are going to end up in heaven with Him. And so we can put on the helmet of salvation, knowing that it is up to God and not up to us in this life. And this is traditionally what is being called the armor of God, the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the shoes of the readiness of the gospel, the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, and lastly, the sword of the Spirit. I don't know if you've noticed, but people are pretty terrible at knowing the difference between right or wrong. And so if you're going to comment on social media, if you're going to rebuke one of your friends, or if you're going to say something publicly, I would encourage you to base it on what you see in the Bible. Because the sword of the Spirit is the main offensive weapon that God has given us as part of His armor to get through the day, to get through our week, and to get through our lives. So I want to encourage you to use it. What I've also noticed though is that as Paul is wrapping up his comments on the armor of God, he encourages people to continue in prayer, to stay alert and to persevere. And for me, these are just as important as the other aspects of the armor of God. That it's all well and good to have truth and righteousness and faith and salvation, but you have to remember to persevere in those things. You have to remember to be praying into these things, because this is how the armor of God is supposed to work. If you are struggling as you listen to this, if you are convicted in any of this, I want to encourage you to reach out to one of our pastors, reach out to a small group leader, get connected into the body of Christ so that our armor can build up your faith.